Part 2. Not intruding. Not retreating. You are quieter here, he said. Arabella did not look at him. I was always quiet here, she replied. That is not the same as being unheard. Adrian accepted that without comment. He looked at the closed moonflowers. I have been thinking about what I call love, he said. Arabella finally turned her head slightly. Not fully, just enough to acknowledge. And, she asked. It was not love, he said. I know that now. She studied him for a long moment, then asked, What was it? He did not answer immediately, because the answer required honesty without self-protection. Finally, it was avoidance, he said. I thought if I named it something smaller, it would stay manageable. Arabella nodded once, as if that made sense, because it did. It was not new information, it was confirmation. Serafina called from the far end of the garden, Mother! The frost made patterns on the leaves! Arabella turned toward her. I see them, she replied. Serafina waved excitedly and returned to her exploration. Silence settled again, not empty, shared. Adrian spoke again. I want to learn what you built here, he said. Arabella did not respond immediately. Then, you are standing in it, he nodded. I know. I mean how you built it, he clarified. That made her look at him fully. For a moment, something unreadable passed through her expression. Then she said, You do not build a life by observing it. I understand that now. No, she said softly. You are beginning to understand it. That distinction was not cruel. It was accurate. By midday, the keep had settled into an uneasy but functional rhythm. Arabella moved through it the way she always had, quietly, precisely, noticing everything without announcing it. But now she did not correct. Not yet. She was observing the consequences of her absence as much as her return. In the kitchen, she did not interfere. In the nursery, she did not reorganize. In the council chamber, she did not sit. She was present, but not restored. Adrian noticed. Of course he did. He noticed everything now. But unlike before, he did not assign meaning without asking. That was the only real change between them so far. And it was not small. That evening, he found her alone in the corridor near the library. Serafina had gone to sleep early again. Exhaustion softened children faster than anything else. Arabella stood by the window looking out at the darkening courtyard. You have not resumed your duties, Adrian said. I have not agreed to, she replied. Then he nodded. I am not asking you to resume anything, he said. She turned slightly. Then what are you asking? He hesitated. This time not from uncertainty about the truth, from clarity about consequence. I am asking what you require to remain here without leaving yourself behind again, he said. Arabella studied him, long, carefully, not surprised by the question, but measuring its sincerity. Then she said, That is the first time you have asked me what I require without assuming you already know. Adrian did not respond, because it was not a moment for defense. It was a moment for receiving. Finally she added, I do not yet know the answer. That was not a weakness. It was honest with the space inside it. Adrian nodded once. So that is acceptable, he said. Arabella's gaze lingered on him a moment longer. Then she turned back toward the window. Do not make it acceptable too quickly, she said quietly. I won't, he replied. That night, the kitchen door opened again at dawn. But this time Arabella heard it from her room, and so did Adrian. And neither of them moved, because for the first time the sound did not belong to absence or return. It belonged to something still forming, and neither of them interrupted it. The first time Adrian Evercrest failed to correct himself, he did not notice immediately. It was during council. A simple matter of border supply routes, something he would have once resolved in minutes without thinking. Now he listened differently. Not for efficiency, for accuracy. Arabella sat at the far end of the chamber, not at the head, not beside him, just present, as she had chosen to be. One of the elders finished speaking and turned toward him expectantly. "We should proceed as you've always directed, Alpha." Adrian opened his mouth. The answer was already formed in him. Old habit, old authority, old certainty pretending to be clarity. Then he stopped, because he felt her presence in the room, not as an influence but as reality. And for the first time he did not speak from what he had always done. He spoke from what was actually true. "I am not certain that is still the correct approach," he said. The chamber went still, not shocked, but attentive, because uncertainty from an alpha was not a weakness. It was a recalibration. Arabella did not look at him, but something in her posture shifted slightly. Not approval. The meeting continued differently after that. Later in the corridor outside the chamber, Magnus Ashford walked beside him. "You paused," Magnus said. "I did. That is new." "Yes." A long silence followed. Magnus studied him carefully. "You are changing how you speak," he said at last. "I am trying to stop assuming my voice is already correct," Adrian replied. Magnus nodded slowly. "That is more dangerous than you think," he said. Adrian did not disagree. In the garden that afternoon, Arabella stood among the dormant rows of herbs. Serafina was elsewhere with Ella, learning how to press dried lavender between paper sheets. The garden was quiet, not empty. Quiet. Adrian approached without announcement. He had learned that entering her space required less presence than interruption. "So you corrected yourself in council," Arabella said before he spoke. "I did." "Why?" He considered the answer carefully, then chose honesty without structure. "Because you were there," he said. Arabella turned slightly toward him. "That is not a reason," she said. "It is," he replied, "just not a traditional one." That made her pause. Not softened, Adrian continued. "I used to think certainty was leadership," he said. "Now I think it is just speed without reflection." Arabella looked back at the garden. "That is closer," she said. "A beat, but still incomplete. I know." They walked between the rows without direction, not together in the way of companionship, but together in the way of proximity without escape. Adrian stopped near the moonflower bed. The plants were still closed. Winter holds them in patience. "I have been thinking about your silence," he said. Arabella did not respond immediately. Then, "Which silence?" "The one you used to correct the rumor," he said. "The one where you did not repeat what I said." She exhaled slowly. "I was protecting something," she said. "I know that now." "No," she corrected gently. "You are beginning to understand that I was protecting you." That landed more deeply than anything he had heard that week. He did not respond right away. When he did, his voice was quieter. "Why?" Arabella studied the closed flowers. "Because truth does not always need to be multiplied to exist," she said. "Sometimes it only needs to be held correctly." "And because I was not willing to let your worst moment become the only thing anyone ever heard about you." Adrian absorbed that slowly. "You did not owe me that," he said. No, she agreed, but I chose it anyway. That evening, Serafina insisted on showing him a drawing. It was uneven, full of careful lines and bright colours. A garden. Moonflowers are larger than possible. 3 figures in it. Her mother, him, and herself in the middle holding both their hands. I made it right, Serafina said proudly. Adrian crouched beside her. It is very good, he said. Serafina looked at him seriously. You don't look sad in it anymore, she added. Arabella stood nearby, watching. Adrian hesitated, then said, Do I look sad in your other drawings? Serafina nodded. Yes, but Mama fixes it. Arabella did not respond, but something passed through her expression. Not pain, not amusement, something more complicated. That night, Adrian found Arabella in the library again. She was not reading. She was sitting by the window, watching the frost gather on the glass. He did not speak immediately. Neither did she. After a while, she said, You are trying too hard in some places. He nodded once. I know, and not enough in others. I know that too. She looked at him then boldly. You are beginning to learn, she said. Yes. That will hurt you, she added. I expect it will. That is not the same as accepting it. He met her gaze. I am not trying to avoid it, he said. Arabella studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. Good, she said. A silence followed. Not uncomfortable, just real. Then she said something he did not expect. You are different when you are not performing certainty. He blinked slightly. I was not aware I was performing it, he admitted. I know, she said. That is why it was convincing. That might have been criticism or observation. With her, the difference was often only intent. When he left the library, the corridor felt longer than before. Not because it had changed, because he had. And somewhere in the keep, behind closed doors and sleeping rooms and quiet frost-covered gardens, something was continuing to shift into a shape neither of them could yet name. But both of them were now willing to stay inside it, long enough to find out they kept changing in ways that did not announce themselves. It was never loud, never sudden. It happened in the smallest intervals, between decisions, between footsteps, between the moment someone spoke and the moment someone else replied. Arabella noticed it first in the kitchen, not in what was being done, in how it was being done. No one stopped her when she entered. No one looked to Adrian for permission. They simply adjusted, as if the keep had begun remembering a rhythm it had once known and was carefully testing whether it still fit. She stood near the preparation tables for a long moment, watching without intervening. Then she turned away. Not because she did not care, because she was no longer certain where care became controlled. Adrian found her in the corridor afterward. He had stopped assuming coincidence was accidental. You did not correct anything, he said. Arabella glanced at him. I am observing, she replied. That is what I am doing as well, he said. She nodded slightly. Yes, she said. But you observe like someone preparing to act. I observe like someone deciding whether action is still necessary. That distinction landed cleanly between them. Adrian absorbed it, did not resist it, then said, Is it necessary? Arabella did not answer immediately, not because she did not know, because she did. Finally she said, Not yet. That word, yet, hung in the air longer than either of them spoke. Serafina was in the courtyard when they arrived. She was building something out of frost-covered stones and twigs, entirely serious in the way children are when they are constructing worlds. It's a den, she explained. Adrian crouched beside her. A den for what? For when it snows properly, she said, as if that were obvious. So nothing gets lost outside. Arabella stood a few steps away, watching, not correcting, not assisting, just a present. Adrian studied the uneven structure. You've made it strong, he said. Serafina nodded proudly. Mama showed me how to make things stay. At that, Arabella's expression shifted slightly. Not pride, not discomfort. Something quieter. Recognition. Adrian looked up at her. You taught her this? He asked. Arabella hesitated. I taught her to test what she builds before trusting it, she said. The rest she learned on her own. That is usually how it works, she added. Adrian nodded, as if accepting a principle he had once assumed was instinctive. That evening, the council convened again. The atmosphere had changed enough that even the elders spoke differently, not less confidently, more carefully, as if certainty had begun to require justification. Adrian did not sit at the head immediately. He stood instead. That alone shifted attention. I will not be issuing immediate directives without review, he said. A quiet ripple moved through the chamber. Not resistance, adjustment, he continued. Some systems will remain unchanged. Others will be reassessed. An elder leaned forward slightly. And who will determine which is which, Alpha? Adrian glanced once toward Arabella. She did not react. Then he said, We will. The room went still, because that was not how power usually spoke. It was how shared understanding began to replace assumptions. Arabella finally looked at him then. Not approving, but acknowledging. After the council, Magnus caught him in the corridor. You are giving up control, Magnus said bluntly. Adrian did not deny it. I am redefining it, he replied. Magnus frowned slightly. That is a dangerous line to walk. I am aware. And her? Magnus did not need to name who. She is not asking for control, he said. Magnus studied him carefully. That may be the most dangerous part, he replied. Adrian did not answer, because there was no disagreement between him, only understanding. Later, in the library, Arabella stood with a book in hand, but did not open it. Adrian entered quietly. She did not turn immediately. You are changing how they see you, she said. I am changing how I act, he corrected. That is the same thing, she replied. No, she added more softly. It is not. But they will treat it as the same thing until they understand the difference. Adrian moved slightly closer. Do you believe they will understand? Arabella considered that carefully. I believe they will adjust, she said. Understanding is optional for most people. Adaptation is not. That was not cynical. It was an experience. Adrian nodded, then said, And you? Arabella finally turned to face him. Not fully softened, not closed. I am not most people, she said. That was all. But it was enough. Outside, winter pressed harder against the keep. The frost deepened. The moonflowers remained closed, waiting. Not dead. Not awake. Just held. Adrian stood by the library window after she left, watching the courtyard below, thinking not of what had changed, but of what had stopped pretending it was already understood. And for the first time, that uncertainty did not feel like instability, so it felt like honesty was still in progress. It began with a mistake Adrian Evercrest did not correct fast enough. Not in counsel, not in strategy. In Serafina's breakfast. She had asked for honeyed bread. The kitchen was plain. Ella hesitated, glanced toward the door as if expecting instruction, then continued serving anyway. Arabella noticed first. Of course she did. Not because she was watching for failure, because she was listening to systems. Serafina frowned at the plate. This isn't what I asked for. A small moment. Ordinary. But the room tightened around it anyway. Ella began to speak, and Adrian spoke first. She asked for honeyed bread, he said. Not sharp, not commanding, just a correction. The kitchen attendant froze. Ella blinked once, then lowered her gaze. I will correct it immediately. Alpha. But Adrian raised a hand slightly. No, he said. It should not need correction. It should be remembered. Arabella did not look at him immediately. When she did, it was not a surprise. It was an assessment. After breakfast, she followed him into the corridor. Not urgently, not emotionally, just deliberately. You corrected them, she said. Yes. Before they failed completely. Yes. That is not how you used to act, she said. I know. Another pause. Why now? Adrian stopped walking. Not because he had nowhere else to go. Because the question required stillness. Because I am trying to build systems that do not rely on assumption, he said. Arabella studied him. That is still system thinking, she replied. Yes? She nodded once. That is why it will take longer. He accepted that. Not as a warning. Later that day, Serafina pulled Arabella toward the garden. I want to show you something, she said urgently. Arabella allowed herself to be led. Adrian followed at a distance. Serafina stopped at the edge of the herb rows. Something had changed. A small section of soil had been marked off with stones, carefully arranged. Intentional. I made a place, Serafina announced proudly. For what? For things that need saving, she said. Arabella crouched slightly. You decided that, Serafina nodded seriously. Mama saves things. Papa fixes things. I save things. I think that is fair. Arabella exhaled slowly. Adrian watched her expression carefully. Not because he expected instruction, because he was learning to read meaning where before he had only seen behavior. She is categorizing responsibility, he said quietly. Arabella glanced at him. Yes, she replied. She is learning what she believes people do. That landed differently. Adrian looked at Serafina's small stone border. And if she believes incorrectly? Arabella stood slowly. Then she will adjust later, she said. That is how children survive understanding adults. And adults survive understanding themselves. That evening, Adrian asked something he had not asked before. Not about work, not about systems, about her. They were in the library, the fire was low. Arabella was sitting near the window again, though not reading. You hum less here, he said. She did not look up immediately. I am not alone here as often, she replied. Then he said, Does that matter? Arabella finally turned toward him. Yes, she said simply. Adrian nodded once, then asked, Why? She considered him for a moment. Not as alpha, not as a husband, as someone currently learning to ask better questions. Because I do not hum for others, she said. I hum when I am not being observed. And when I feel safe enough to forget I am. That landed quietly between them. Not emotional. Structural. Adrian absorbed it. I would like you to feel that here again, he said. Arabella did not respond immediately. When she did, it was not accepted. It was clear. That is not something you can give me by deciding it, she said. I know. It is something I will either learn again, she continued, or not. Adrian nodded. I understand. Arabella studied him. You are saying that more often now, she observed. Yes. and meaning it more often. Yes, that will change things, she said. It already is. Later that night, Adrian did something unexpected. He did not go to the garden. He did not go to the council chamber. He went to the kitchen. It was empty. Only one attendant remained, startled by his presence. Alpha. Adrian looked around, not for inspection, for memory. This is where she stood in the mornings, he said. Yes, Alpha. She did not stand, he corrected quietly. She worked. The attendant said nothing. Adrian stepped closer to the table where preparations were still neatly arranged. He stood there for a long time, then said, I want this room to remember her correctly. The attendant hesitated. Alpha? Adrian exhaled. I do not want it to remember absence, he said. I want it to remember action. That was all. But it was enough to change how the room would be treated from that day forward. When he returned to the corridor, Arabella was there, as if she had been waiting, or as if the keep itself had begun placing them in each other's paths without asking permission. You went to the kitchen, she said. Yes. Why? He did not hesitate this time. Because I realized I have been learning you in pieces that never included where you first existed, he said. Arabella studied him. Most people only learn from others after they lose them, she said. I am trying not to be like most people. That is not the same as succeeding, she added. I know. She nodded once, then turned slightly toward the corridor leading back to the garden. Come, she said. Adrian followed. And for the first time, it did not feel like he was being led into understanding. It felt like he was being allowed to continue. Winter did not soften for them. It simply continued, as it always had, indifferent what people finally understood about themselves. Wolfheart Keep woke each morning with frost still threaded through its stones. The pack moved through its routines, but something had shifted in the way they moved, less cautious, less held in. Not because everything was fixed, because something had been acknowledged. Arabella noticed it first in small ways. The kitchen stopped guessing her orders. The healer's staff stopped leaving decisions half-made for approval that would never be asked for. And Seraphina began speaking differently about the world, not less freely, more precisely. That worried Arabella more than she admitted, because precision in a child was often inherited. Adrian Evercrest did not announce changes anymore. He stopped believing announcements were meaningful unless followed by repetition. Instead, he observed, adjusted, and returned. He learned the rhythm of rooms instead of trying to command them. And slowly, carefully, he began doing the one thing he had avoided for years, without realizing it. He stopped assuming presence meant understanding. One morning, Arabella found him in the herb garden before dawn. He was standing still among the frost-covered sage, not speaking, not touching anything. Just there, watching. You are early, she said. I did not sleep, he replied. She stepped beside him. Neither faced each other immediately. The garden did not require it. After a while, she asked, what are you doing? Adrian did not answer quickly. That itself was new. I am trying to understand what remains when I am not interpreting it, he said. Arabella glanced at him. That is a dangerous sentence, she said. Yes, but necessary, he added. She nodded slightly. Then she crouched, brushing frost from a low-growing stem. You used to think everything here existed because it was useful, she said. I know. You no longer think that. I think that was incomplete. Arabella was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Incompleteness is not the same as harm." Adrian looked at her then. "I know," he said, "but I am beginning to understand how often I treated it as if it were." That afternoon, Serafina disappeared for nearly an hour. The keep moved briefly into a quiet alarm. "Don't panic." Ella checked the corridors. The guards checked the outer grounds. Adrian went straight to the garden. Arabella went to the stables. They did not discuss it. They simply moved and found her together. Serafina was sitting beside the lake path, talking softly to a small, injured bird she had wrapped carefully in cloth. "I told them not to be scared," she said when she saw them. "It is listening." Arabella knelt immediately. Adrian remained standing. "Is it alive?" Arabella asked gently. "Yes," Serafina said, "just tired." Adrian crouched beside her slowly, not touching the bird. "What do you think it needs?" he asked. Serafina considered. "Quiet," she said, "and something warm." Arabella glanced at Adrian, a brief look. "That is correct," Adrian said. Serafina brightened slightly. "I can do that." And she did. That night, Arabella did not return to her room immediately. She stood in the corridor outside Serafina's door. Adrian found her there. "You are thinking," he said. "I am always thinking," she replied. "More than usual," he amended. "Yes." They stood together for a moment, not close enough to touch, not far enough to be apart. Finally, Adrian said, "I do not know if I am becoming someone better." Arabella did not respond immediately. When she did, it was not reassuring. It was true. "I am not interested in better," she said. "I am interested in reality." Adrian nodded once. "That is harder," he said. "Yes." Then he added quieter, "But I think I can do that." Arabella looked at him, just seeing. "You already are?" she said. And for the first time it did not sound like forgiveness. It sounded like an observation. The final thaw came slowly. As all true changes do, not in declarations, not in turning points, but in repetition. Adrian began asking fewer questions that required answers and more that required presence. Arabella stopped measuring his words for hidden collapse and began listening to their shape. Serafina grew taller in a way neither of them commented on. The herb gardens survived another winter. So did they. On the last page of Adrian's notebook, the one he had once filled with observations about a woman he thought he understood, he added a final line. Not about her, not about loss, not about corrections. Just this. I am learning how to remain where I stand without turning people into systems. He closed the book. And for the first time since the beginning of everything that had broken and slowly, imperfectly mended, he did not feel like he was chasing understanding. He felt like he was finally living inside it,